Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. I hope you guys are doing brilliantly. Yesterday we spoke about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in the first part of the fallout. Now we're going to do a quick whiz around the other Premier League teams, or some of the other Premier League teams, and some of the big talking points from the weekend's action. Let's kick off with Villa. Now, Aston Villa lost quite badly against Arsenal, and the last three games haven't been great. And so there was a question here from Callum with two L's, Callum Grant. He said, is Villa working without Grealish? Now, I didn't want to do this. I really didn't want to do this because it feels super lazy. But the more I look at it and look at some of the numbers, the more I kind of think, yeah, sadly, it is. Aston Villa fans, talk to me. Because I've seen a lot of anger recently. A good friend of mine, Dan Bardell, apparently is getting a bit abused for saying that he doesn't want the manager to go, which feels like a real, feels like a bit much, doesn't it? But if you look at Aston Villa this season, I think the things that you've got to definitely comprehend and acknowledge is the fact that when you lose someone like Jack Grealish, and we've seen this previously with someone like Spurs, where you lose Gareth Bale, someone who is so integral to how you play, it's going to take a minute. And what's great about, I think, being an Aston Villa fan right now, and this sounds negative, but it's not, is that there's a safety to you guys. You're far too good to be going down. I think, in Norwich, Burnley, Southampton, there's Newcastle definitely, but we'll see what happens with them in the transfer window. There's enough teams that you should be absolutely fine. Brentford are above you at the moment. Watford, another one as well. You should be absolutely fine. So with that comes an element of chill. Like have a little bit of patience and allow all these new signings that you've had to bed in. Look, if they'd hit the ground running, then wonderful. But you've also had a lot of injuries as well to some of these players that you are excited about. That said, there are some problems here, and Aston Villa are struggling without Jack Grealish. Now, the last three games, let's have a look at that. Yeah, it's disappointing, right? It's really disappointing. And there are a lot of L's here. And the last three, if you look at the last three games, I think you've caught some teams at bad times. Let's also remember, look, you beat Man United. Now, no, that's not the hardest thing at the moment, but that was a good victory. But in all of this, there are some clues as to what's kind of going wrong in terms of dealing with the loss of Jack Grealish. Now, you played Spurs off the back of a bad defeat for them, so you saw a bit of a response from Spurs. And it is Spurs all the same. Let's always remember that. The Villa game, that is frustrating, angering, but you were 2-0 up, and the reason you've lost that game is not from dealing with the first phase of a free kick or a corner kick, dealing with the second phase. And it's unforgivable, but it's also kind of a one-off. If that's happening throughout the season, then you've got real grounds to go overboard with it. But it's just one of those things, right? And then the final one, look, Arsenal, they've come back into a nice bit of form recently, haven't they? You're playing them away from home. I feel like the expectations are maybe a touch too high for Aston Villa at the moment, when you understand that in Smith, you've got a good manager. I think he's proven that now. And with that, and look, he loves Villa as well. So with both of those elements, I think you've got to give him a little bit of a break. So this is a fantastic website that I use all the time. It's called theanalyst.com, and it shows some just really simple graphs that highlight how a team is doing in terms of expected goals for, against, team sequences, styles, and team sequences pressures. So go check it out, theanalyst.com. Got all the sort of top leagues as well, right? So when I'm diving into Aston Villa and how they're playing and how they're kind of coping without having Jack Grealish, now I'm sure there's a lot of different reasons for this, injuries being one of them, not having a settled team being another one of them. But in terms of what Jack Grealish brings to the team and what you need for a team to kind of succeed, Aston Villa are struggling when it comes to scoring goals, and that's with a lot more kind of talent overall than they had prior to having that sole focus of being get the ball to Jack Grealish. But if we have a look at this is expected goals for, right? So when we have a look at open play, in terms of shots that are being created in open play, Aston Villa are currently fourth bottom, for that, right? So struggling in open play from that point. In terms of XG in open play again as well, third bottom now. Really struggling to create at the moment. Will that come in time? I believe it will. I do believe it will, because I think it's a well-run club. I think you've made smart choices with your recruitment. Something like Leon Bailey is going to be a cracking player for you. Buendia will create chances in time, but I think that's what it needs. It needs time, right? In terms of XG with set pieces, it's been much, much better. Fourth top for that one, and that's shown with the new coach that's come in. So that part of the game is solid. It's the other side of it. And then when it comes to expected goals against, shots conceded in open play, pretty middling, right? So it's okay when it comes to the defensive side of the game. Nothing to worry about there. What I do think is interesting is the team sequences and style, right? So this looks at how long the team kind of has the ball when they've got it, right? And from that, you can see where they are in terms of a team style comparison. Great graph again by theanalyst.com. So here it shows how fast and direct the team is playing. And this is something they kind of did last season, but what you can see is that they are out here on their own, right? So being quite fast and quite direct in how they're playing in terms of the passes per sequence that they're trying to put together. Is that leading to chances? Currently, it's not, right? And then the final one, all four of these are just great to look at. Team sequences and pressures. So here is a great little example for you here. So in terms of PPDA is the number of opposition passes allowed outside of the pressing team's own defensive third. So basically, that last sentence is important. A lower figure indicates a higher level of pressing, while a higher figure indicates a lower level of pressing. So let's scroll down and have a little look at that. So in terms of PPDA, where are Aston Villa at the moment? Aston Villa are quite high up. They are, in terms of, let's put it the other way around. So in terms of a pressing team, currently 5th. So they are looking to press. They are looking to be quite direct. Then when you look at high turnovers, again, you can see it here underneath me. Let me just show you. The number of sequences that start in open play and begin 40 metres or less from the opponent's goal. So pressing high up, winning the ball back, right? When it comes to a total amount of high turnovers, Aston Villa are pretty healthy. It's quite a hectic game of football that they're playing. They haven't got the same amount of control that they maybe have had in previous seasons, or quality when they do win the ball high up the pitch. At the moment, when they are winning the ball high up the pitch, they're currently the worst team for getting a shot off from that situation. So although they are pressing and winning the ball, it's then that quality in the final third once they win it. And I think that comes from drilling down on a new philosophy that they're trying to put forward. Previously, yes, they worked really, really hard, but ultimately, now they're trying to be more of a team and press more like a team and be more direct as a team. At the moment, when you're going to play like that, you need to be really, really high when it comes to your level of chemistry throughout your team. And I think at the moment, having lost Jack Grealish, who brings that quality in the final third, you've now not currently got that. So yes, you are hurting from not having Jack Grealish in the team. Of course you are. But in the long term, I truly believe you'll be in a better situation. And this season, I think, is a free hit to allow to drill down on who Aston Villa want to be next season. Crystal Palace versus Newcastle. Crystal Palace are doing really well at the moment. They're just not really getting the breaks. But I've got to say, it is coming. It really, really is coming. I think they're going to have an enjoyable season this year if you're a Crystal Palace fan. I think you're going to beat some teams that you shouldn't do, or people wouldn't think that you could. And then there'll be moments like this, in games like this, where Newcastle kind of got a bit of credit from this game. But I don't know how. I think it was just because it was Graham Jones, and I think there's a bit of result bias in this. Because, I mean, if you look at the stats here, the domination from Crystal Palace in this game, I think is pretty alarming. And in the first half in particular, 78% possession, 5 shots to 3. They were far, far better, and throughout the game, a much, much better side. I think there's the video to be done on Crystal Palace down the road, and I will do that, I'm sure. But it's coming for Crystal Palace. I think they need to continue the way that they are, and it will come. And really, with Benteke, I was watching this game and then looking at the average positions and thinking, Newcastle, who do they need to sign? And I looked across, and yes, Benteke missed some chances, and he always kind of does, disappointingly, or has done since he left Aston Villa. But I looked at Newcastle and I was starting to think, what kind of player do they need? Because the big talking point with Newcastle is, how many changes do you make? And how much of a change to the style of play do you make? And I wonder do you want to go too far with that? Is it ultimately about being solid this season and having more quality on the break? And when I look at that and I look at the average positions from this game, and this is very, very common in how Newcastle play. It's often a very detached system where you have your guys at the back. You have two blocks, basically, and these two are isolated, and left on their own. Callum Wilson and Alan St-Maximin. And I want to touch on Callum Wilson for a second, because another great comment that came from Danny Cox. Callum Wilson for England in November. DCL and Bamford are injured. Watkins is out of form. It's got to be Wilson. 21 goal and assists in 28 starts for this Newcastle side is so impressive. I completely agree with that. I think Callum Wilson, I think the consistency that he's provided and the quality that he provides in terms of his finishing, he's close to being a complete striker. I wonder if his best role is not in being involved in that hold-up play as much, but being involved on being that advanced forward and being on the last line of defence. But go back and watch that. The lack of coverage that Callum Wilson goal got was a bit criminal, to be honest, because that finish is outrageously difficult, and he has held the goal-scoring quota on his shoulders for 2 seasons now, and he hasn't blinked. He's been confident. He's lacked any kind of tenseness in the way that he wants to kind of take his finishes, and he deserves huge credit and recognition from England for that as well, because he has been so fantastic for Newcastle. But when I look at the amount of money that's going to come into Newcastle, but also how they need to be careful when they make those moves, I've got to be honest, it's a target man. I really feel like it's a target man that they need. If you think of how well they did with Benitez and Rondon, I'm not saying Rondon is the guy, because Rondon has struggled. But to take someone like Alan St-Maximin out, away from this front two, and to bring him over here, I think would just so much balance and so much more threat to this Newcastle team. Because ultimately, there's 2 ways of thinking about football. Being concerned about the opposition, and then them being concerned of you. We know the midfield is weak. And look, I mean, some of the players that are playing in these positions here for them, Ryan Fraser in that position, the 21 there, it's odd. Matt Ritchie is never going to get beyond. You've got 2 wingers here playing on each other's toes. He's playing essentially as a central midfielder. You're not going to get anywhere with this. You're not going to win games like this. The back three, Clark, Longstaff, as deep as he is, that's unbelievable. He's behind Jamal Lascelles in terms of his average position. Isaac Hayden, the structure's not there, and I think sometimes the structure would be better from having more options going forward. So for me, the one thing I would like to say, as much as Callum Wilson's been fantastic, I think the first thing that Newcastle need to do is go and get themselves a target man. Because what a target man would do is it would allow St-Maximin to come out wide, it would allow Callum Wilson to be that advanced forward, and it would allow Newcastle to get up the pitch. Because in terms of midfielders at the moment, the quality is nowhere near there. But out wide, there's that little bit extra. You got Ryan Fraser, you got Matt Ritchie, you got Jamal Lewis if you want to get involved a bit more, and most importantly, I think you want to get Alan St-Maximin out wide and one-on-one with defenders. But being one-on-one with defenders and not taking a body out from the central area of the pitch. If you want me to do a video on Newcastle and the players they should sign, let me know in the comments below. And also, maybe let's set a like target just for that one in particular. If we can get to 3,000 likes on this video, then I'll do a video on Newcastle and the players that I think they should go out and sign. By the way, if you're still watching by this point and you're enjoying the content and you haven't subscribed to the channel or hit the notification bell, I do a lot of lives as well. So please do consider subscribing to the channel and make sure you do get involved in the comments, because I do read absolutely all of them. Bit of a link from Newcastle to Chelsea maybe is how fantastic this Chelsea academy is. And actually I know a coach who's he basically discovered the bulk of these exciting English players that are at Chelsea right now. And if you want me to do a video on that as well, let's hit that like target and let me know if you do want me to do that, or if you think that would be a bit boring. But what I sort of saw watching this game was 2 things. One, how bad Norwich were, but secondly, the academy. And I think, there's been a lot of talk about Newcastle, and I was chatting on the kickoff at the weekend about Newcastle and how they should spend their money. And one thing I wasn't kind of able to say was that when I'm talking about restricting the top teams and how much money they can spend, I think there are avenues where they can spend money. So for Newcastle and Man City and all these other teams, what I would have liked to have seen is less ability to spend such extortionate amounts on transfer fees, but a free rein in terms of how much money you can spend on your academy. Because I think if you then go and win the Champions League or win titles, having brought through youngsters, that feels a lot fairer to me. Maybe I'm wrong in that, but I think, and I was watching this documentary and it was talking about the youth of today, and it was Les Reed, who's at Southampton, or was at Southampton, and he was saying when it comes to ambition shouldn't be on how much money you can waste. It should be on how much money you can invest and sort of grow from that. And so when I look at Chelsea, and yes, they have spent so much money over the years, but they've also invested in their academy, incredibly so. And it just made me wonder, if you think Mason Mount, Reece James, Chalobah, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Chilwell, of course, has been brought in for good money, but let's forget Chilwell, right? But then I start to think, imagine if that was Tomori, and imagine if that was Tammy Abraham, and imagine if you'd held on to De Bruyne, and imagine if, do you know what I mean? The academy at Chelsea is absolutely outstanding, and they've invested so much in that, and they should enjoy it. And that's where you can enjoy it. And I know this is going to be an on-running thing, I think, with me, is that I think there's ways of spending money and it's still feeling nice, feeling great. And I think when you think of the players that have been left, you could have put Salah there, can you? I mean, that's a struggle in the midfield, right? But if you think of the players that Chelsea have let go, young talent that they've let go, then I think what you can see here is that there is another way as well. Yes, you've got to attract all these players, of course, but if you can invest in an academy and get it right, you can still win it all. You can still win it all. In this game, the other side of it, of course, is just how bad Norwich were in this game, and it was diabolical, to be honest. And the big thing for me is how they're playing at the moment and the average positions of the team. It's a mess. It's a real mess. And it's confusing, because I tweeted last week saying, have they turned the corner here, Norwich? Not knowing that they were playing Chelsea in their next game. And the thing for me is just the fact of how open they were. This back three, you're playing Chelsea. Like, get your three nice and tight here. Get yourselves compact and hard to break down here. And then you can have these two here and you can do do your best. And if you want to work up the pitch and you've got the quality to do it, then great. But if you haven't, then you can at least be compact and not give the options. If you look at any of the goals, go back and watch the goals of this game. They came from, I think Reece James, of course, scored. And I think that came from a run out wide because they were too open. There was a run from Callum Hudson-Odoi, which came from them being too open. And you literally could drive a bus through here. It's outrageous. So with Norwich City, it feels like they're dead and buried. It really, really does. And I could say that, but I've got a good friend in Jack Reeve who has a YouTube channel called Talk Norwich City. Now, Jack is just stunning when it comes to talking about football, and he's a massive Norwich fan, has done the channel for years. It's a wonderful channel. There's a link in the description. Go and check it out. But when I was going to dive into someone like Farker and has he taken it as far as he can, what is exactly the big problem at Norwich right now? There's only one person I could ask. It was Jack Reeve, and this is what he had to say.
Norwich City have issues, and plenty of them. Let's start with the formation. Throughout the successful spells of Daniel Farke's reign at Norwich City, he's always played a 4-2-3-1 formation. It's what's worked best for him and also the squad that we've had. We've now switched and we've gone to a 5-3-2 in the hope that it will shore us up defensively. Now, to a point, it has. Clean sheets against Burnley and Brighton were great. Unfortunately, they weren't converted into wins, mainly because, yes, we've shored up at the back, but we're now not creating chances. And that comes down to the fact that we now don't have three players in behind Teemu Pukki. Now, of course, it was Emi Buendia, and losing him was a massive blow. we almost couldn't recruit someone as good as him. But it does mean that we've now got Christos Jolis and Milo Rashica, 2 record signings for Norwich City, not playing at all. They're sat on the bench. It also means that we've got Todd Cantwell, who has proven himself in the Premier League before, now playing for the under-23s. That is a serious issue. And the recruitment and what we're playing seems so misaligned. Norwich City have had issues recruiting in the Premier League in the past, mainly because we haven't been able to spend money before. We have spent money this time, and now we're not using them. Daniel Farke's time at Norwich City is seemingly coming to an end because the same mistakes have been made over and over again. There is no evidence to base an argument off Norwich City remaining in the Premier League.
With Norwich, I think what makes it a lot more glaring is when you look at Brentford. And now Brentford have gone up for the first time, and it's not great football that Brentford are playing, but it's very, very effective football. It's compact, and they're hard to break down, and then you've got quality at the top end of the pitch that allows you to bypass the midfield at times, get the ball to Tony, and get yourself in and have some good chances. It's not pretty, but it's certainly looking like it's going to keep Brentford up this season, and they deserve all the plaudits that they're getting. For Norwich, they look a bit lost, don't they, in terms of how they're going to play, and it's both open, but also you've got 2 players up top who are isolated because you can't get through the thirds. Kind of drilling down on this for too long could get incredibly ugly. Now, do you just turn away from that and go, right, let's be really, really solid and see where we can go from that? Or do you find a way to bring in these players that you've spent so much money on? Let me know in the comments below what you would do if you were the manager of Norwich City. There are a million different things I could talk about. I could talk about Phil Foden, but I want to do a whole video on that. We could talk about West Ham and how brilliant they've been. And actually, I will take a second because Dan Ward said, West Ham, mate. All pundits said we'd struggle with the balance of Europa and Premier League, but we're top 4 and top of our group. Unbelievable from West Ham, and I don't know how they're doing it right now, but maybe that's something I need to dive into as well. But I can't talk about all of it in one video, so the best way that you will see me talk about all of these bits and pieces is to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button as well. Let me know which of the videos that I've kind of spoken about possibly doing you'd like to see the most in the comments below, and I'll see you very, very soon.